The headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This week in Cincinnati on WCPO 9.
Welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Kristen Hartman. For many Reds fans, listening to the games won't ever be the same again because Marty Brennaman is no longer in the broadcast booth. Brennaman called the team's games for 46 years before he retired, including many of the Reds' biggest moments. Listen to how he remembers his first in-person experience with pro baseball, and you'll understand how Brennaman was born to talk about this game with his longtime partner, Joe Nuxhall.
My mom and dad took me to see the Yankees and the Washington Senators play in 1954, 55, when Mickey Mantle was doing his thing. And I'll never forget the reaction that I had in walking up the first base runway and up to the top of the concourse, and the first thing I saw was the most beautiful green grass I've ever seen in my life. I was stunned, and that was the first reaction I had, because up until then I relied on radio every night.
When you talk about finally getting to see it, there are people who will never get to see certain ballparks. Did you feel the pressure of having to fill that void with your voice? Well,
I don't know if I felt like I needed to fill it with my voice, but I wanted to give them a feel of what the park looked like. And periodically we'd go into a city, and I remember that I'd not talked about that in a while, and I'd talk about the nuances of a PNC Park in Pittsburgh, or the new ballpark, Citi Field in New York, and give them at least an idea of where we were. I think, and I've said it a million times, if there is a pure art form in play-by-play sports, it's baseball, because it's the hardest one to do. To begin with, nothing happens until the pitcher throws the ball. And you can't sit there for 30 seconds until he decides to get the sign and throw the next pitch. You've got to be able to ad-lib, whether it's straight-out comments or opinions, or with the guy working with you. And it has to be cogent, and it has to be semi-intelligent.
And fun.
And fun.
And fun.
Well, there's nothing I enjoyed more.
Yeah.
And Joe used to have a saying, if you hang around this game long enough, you're going to see something that you've never seen before. And God bless him, that was the truth. I cannot recount the number of times that something happened on a baseball field that I'd never seen before.
Really?
And I think somebody said I broadcast over 7,500 games.
Well, that said, you have quite a nice write-up on Wiki, of course, Wikipedia, and it mentions your notable calls. Hank Aaron's record-tying 714th career home run in '74. Right. Tom Seaver's only no-hitter in '78. Pete Rose's record-breaking 4,192nd career hit in '85. The Reds' World Series victories in '75, '76, and 1990. You read these, and these are all the things that live large in baseball fans' memories, and you were right there for it. So what's your favorite?
Well, again, my favorite?
Yeah.
Is Jay Bruce's home run on there?
Yes, I didn't get to it on the list.
When Bruce hit that home run, I felt like I got into it. It sent the Reds into the postseason. It was a game-ending home run at Great American Ballpark off Houston. And I felt wonderful about that call.
There are very few people in the broadcast business who are known because of phrases that they use.
That's the insane mind of a left-hander. People said, where do you come up with this stuff? Yeah. I said, I have no idea.
Yeah.
That this one belongs to the Reds was something that happened, I think, in the second week of my first season in '74, and Davey Concepcion was a shortstop on that Big Red Machine team. Mm-hmm. He got a hit in the bottom of the ninth, or the bottom of an extra inning at Riverfront, and it just came out. I didn't even plan it. It just came out, and I'm driving back to my house here out in Anderson, mm-hmm. and I thought, maybe that's a good idea to end every winning game that they have, never dreaming that they would win so many games in '74, '75, and '76. And then the first time I forgot to say it, immediately people started calling the switchboard at the control room at WLW radio. Uh-huh. What the heck's happened? Is he not going to say it anymore? Is he sick?
Oh, no.
And I had no idea. And I thought, well, apparently this is catching on. So that is something that probably will be remembered long after I'm gone. And I was lucky to be able to say it so many times in the first 3 years I was here.
You've called a lot of games, a lot of seasons. What's the magic? What makes a Big Red machine?
I don't know that you'll ever see that again, Kristen. I don't think we'll ever see a team as great as that team was. You couldn't afford that team to begin with by today's monetary standards as it applies to the game. But that was a magical team.
Your prediction for the Reds this year?
Well, they got a lot of questions that have to be answered in the affirmative if they're going to be the kind of team that I think they can be. I think their pitching, once they get Sonny Gray back, and I think the starting pitching's got a chance to be very good. I think offensively, they're going to score runs, something that they did not do last year, but I think last year was a 60-game aberration that a lot of players for a lot of teams did not live up to what their back of their baseball card says. This team will hit. They're going to be a little bit short defensively on the infield, and their bullpen needs to have some people really pitch well for them. But I think they're in a very winnable division.
I have to imagine it was hard to step away from the mic.
It was not. I retired after giving it some thought, and I've never looked back. I've turned the page. Nobody was more blessed to have the kind of career and the kind of success that went to that career in this town that I could have ever dreamed about. I mean, I could not have imagined it in my wildest dreams. And at the same time, I realized that when I retired, there were places we wanted to go and things we wanted to do.
Do you find yourself at all commenting the way you would have during a game? No.
No.
You just watch it?
Let me say,
Okay.
Yes, I will listen to what the announcers say. And there are some of the guys that I'm really close to that I will send text messages to in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
And I would say, how in the world could you say something like that? That is flat stupid. But I just do that to rattle their chain.
Welcome back. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. Starting and growing a business is always hard, but the next generation of Black entrepreneurs here is about to get a little extra help. The Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky African American Chamber of Commerce is starting what it calls the 2046 Commission. It's going to focus on the next 25 years of progress for Black businesses. This week I spoke with Commission co-chair Jason Dunn and the president of the African American Chamber of Commerce, Eric Kearney, about the program.
Eric Kearney, Jason Dunn, thanks so much for being with us. Let's start with Eric. Eric, explain to us the 2046 Commission and why we even need it.
Well, it's a great commission and it's board led. Jason Dunn, our board chair, had this vision. It's taking the next 25 years for Black owned businesses. The African American Chamber of Commerce is 25 this year. And so what will happen in the next 25 years? And this commission is setting the groundwork for that type of thought process.
Jason, what do you want to see happen in the next 25 years? Have you even thought, like, projecting out, like, this is where we are now, this is where we could be?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked the question. What I would like for us to do as a region is to be competitive. The goal is to ensure that when Black entrepreneurs look at Cincinnati, when companies look at Cincinnati, they see a competitive workforce, they see a competitive entrepreneurial environment, and that people who want to start businesses are able to do that without resistance and with ease. So the goal is to figure out what are the distractions, what are the hurdles, and then how do we get people from national, international, statewide, and local leaders around the table to make sure Cincinnati can compete, not just this year, but 25 years down the road. And that is the goal and the mission of the African American Chamber of Commerce.
Eric, I know that you have been part of this from 25 years ago. He just said he wants Cincinnati to be able to compete in this way. Why can't we right now?
Well, I think there are a number of different hurdles, and I'm not saying that we can't. I'm just saying we need to focus differently. And so we did a study with the University of Cincinnati where we found that the economic impact of Black-owned businesses is $1.44 billion in this region. While that's a really great number and something we should be quite proud of, it also tells us that we're not doing enough. We're we're behind the rest of the country. And so Cincinnati has to put a greater emphasis. So just imagine if we were to do this and 5 years or 25 years from now, that 1.44 billion was doubled, tripled, quadrupled, or even tenfold larger. What a different and better community Cincinnati would be.
Jason, how much of this comes down to education, whether that's hands-on education or book education? How much of it is about that?
Well, I think it's a combination of both and willpower. As we look at education as relates to people being aware of what's around them and how we're focusing around different competitive sets, or even what to do and how to start your business. The Chamber as a whole has a great grasp around how to take people from one entity of getting the business started and then sustaining that. But we want to make sure that the ecosystem, both in Northern Kentucky and in Cincinnati, are prepared for those entrepreneurs when they come out of that. So I would say both book smart and having the ability and resources and the capital to sustain a business long term.
How do we get people ready? How? What do we do?
I think the commission is one of those facets. We have to educate the community on what it is that we need, what are the obstacles, and then how do we reinvent ourselves to be innovative in ways that we compete again, not just in Cincinnati or the region, but on a national basis. And that's what the chamber is focused on long term. And with the help of Eric and some of the leadership that we will have on this commission, we'll help to provide that and introduce it to the community as a whole.
Eric, talk to me about the leadership of this commission. Who's on there and why do they matter?
Well, a couple of things. We're just doing the top layer right now, and then there are going to be others. So Jason is one of the co-chairs, Jason Dunn. John Moore, who is very well known in the city and is the owner of Moore Air, which is an HVAC company. Larissa England, who is the vice chair of the African American Chamber of Commerce and works for Scripps. So that's she's a wonderful person and very, very knowledgeable. And then Stacy Browning, and she is with Centrifuge. She was formerly with Paycor. She's absolutely a brilliant person, very well connected in Cincinnati, and has a great vision. So we've got a lot of intellectual horsepower. We've got people who really know business. And then Jason can tell you about filling out the rest of the commission.
Yes, so while those are our co-chairs, there are some elected officials whom on the Kentucky side who will be involved. We'll announce shortly. There's some national people whom are business leaders and frankly, people who help build infrastructure. There'll be finance people from banks. There'll be angel investors who invest in startup businesses, et cetera. There'll be politicians and stakeholders from various entities within the region that will be announced too. So that's our next announcement to you guys on what's next. But again, the goal is to create a brain trust of people who can help kind of bring out the best in Cincinnati and the region, and then introduce that as a framework or a blueprint to move forward to make sure that we're competing with the best and that we're setting ourselves up to lead in this space of relation to Black entrepreneurship.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your work on this commission. We look forward to seeing, all the results of it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. Ohio's ploy to bring Big Apple businesses to the Buckeye State is getting a lot of attention. We recently showed you the ad campaign itself in New York with the line, "Your buildings are taller, our taxes are smaller." And we wondered what kind of response the campaign is getting. So I spoke with Renee Scott, the managing director of Jobs Ohio, which is behind this campaign. Renee Scott, thank you so much for spending some time with us to explain exactly what is going on here. These billboards that have been put out, we're talking about New York, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Boston, Chicago, and Austin. Have I missed any cities?
There's a few more out there, but we're testing and learning in all of these markets, seeing where we can really resonate and get a conversation started.
Now, one of them that really caught the eye of New Yorkers, of course, was a huge billboard near Times Square. It says your billboards or your buildings are taller, not your build. This is a big billboard. It says your buildings are taller, our taxes are smaller. What is the focus of the discussion you want started as a result of these billboards?
Absolutely. And I'm excited to talk to you about it today. This campaign has been so fun, and we know it's a little bit edgy, but we're trying to break down some of our Midwest modesty here and making sure we're getting Ohio into the conversation. Jobs Ohio's purpose is economic development. In the Cincinnati area, we have a great partner in Ready Cincinnati, and we want to make sure that we get the Ohio story told as those companies that are looking to maybe leave the coast in light of the pandemic, that they know that Ohio is open for business. And so we're trying to put Ohio in the consideration set, talking to those business leaders about what Ohio has to offer. And in that case of that example, that billboard, our buildings are your buildings are taller, our taxes are smaller. We really want to start to touch on some of those key decision points that are important to them, where we know the cost of operating here is going to save them some money.
Do you really believe a campaign like this can jumpstart a company to have those discussions and say, maybe it's time to rethink, lifting everything up and moving it to the Midwest?
Well, we know that the data shows us there's stories out there and real live examples of companies that are doing that. So we certainly hope we can make sure that we're in that consideration set, but definitely for those that are already looking, because we know it's happening, we want to make sure that Ohio is considered. We'd be in Ohio, I think we would be irresponsible if we weren't making sure that our name was in the consideration.
Well, I think a lot of companies coming out of this pandemic are realizing, just like we are having a discussion over Zoom right now, so many jobs have moved to at home work environments. It's kind of like this new thing that we all just kind of got pushed into. I would assume that there has to be some discussion in your offices about how that landscape changes to maybe enable some of these companies to look at your billboards and say, we can do this work anywhere. Why not do it someplace where the taxes are lower?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a component of this campaign that we do want the worker to follow, right? If a company is moving here, they may have workforce that they want to bring along. But secondary to this message is we know also people that are on the coast, when you think about their quality of life and working from a 400 square foot apartment to having a home with a yard and a fenced in yard, we want to make sure they know the value proposition that Ohio has to offer as well. So that's a secondary component of this campaign, to get those workers, to Ohio, and they can work. They can certainly live here and have an amazing quality of life. We'd like them to work here for Ohio-based businesses as well, but certainly it'd be great to have them, and we welcome them to Ohio.
When this first rolled out, of course, we reported that you had received some emails, you had received some phone calls. Are those just kind of feelers that you're getting already, or have you actually received anything more concrete? Like, we really want to take a deeper dive into this.
We've definitely had people wanting to take a deeper dive. In economic development, we know that those are deals that take time to develop. They're big financial commitments. So I can't say that we have any actual transactions that we can tie back to this campaign in the early stages here, just being about 3 months in. But we also have stories where we've got people that we know have moved as a result of some of this effort and have mentioned that to us. So we know it's resonating, and we're definitely monitoring that traction.
You're obviously targeting a number of other cities, as I mentioned. Particular industries you're focused on? We have about a minute left here. Are there any particular industries that you think really this targets specifically to come to Ohio?
Well, at Jobs Ohio, we focus on 10 key industries, and so we're really laddering to those 10 key industries. But our focus is really on those emerging sectors. We're thinking about tech, because that's an underlying area that will grow the Ohio economy. Federal and military is an important portion here. Healthcare, we've got a great new innovation district that we've announced in Cincinnati in partnership with the Cincinnati Innovation District. So we want to make sure we're attracting companies and the workforce that can complement what Ohio already has to offer.
Sounds good. Renee Scott, Managing Director at Jobs Ohio. Thanks so much for explaining what's going on here. We look forward to perhaps future billboards, and obviously we would all love, future growth in Ohio itself.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This Week in Cincinnati. We'll be right back.
Well, the Reds new season got off to a rough start Thursday. Record cold and an 11-6 loss to St. Louis. But for the first time in more than a year, fans were in the stands, and that alone gave many people a reason to celebrate. That is This Week in Cincinnati for this Easter weekend. Join us for breaking news, weather, and sports at 6 and 11 tonight on WCPO 9 News. And of course, we're always updating your headlines on WCPO.com.